Hello, good evening. My name is Catherine, and I'm with SCB Housing. Let me just turn my volume up a little bit. This is the information session for the 18 affordable rental, housing units at 346 Union in Somerville. So on your screen right now, you should see information about translation services that are available to you if you require information in a language other than English. So you can contact us using the email address union346@sebhousing.com and the phone number provided for translation services, and we'll accommodate you by providing answers to your questions in your primary or preferred language. So the purpose of this session tonight is to give you a little bit of background information on the available units. We're also going to cover the application and the eligibility and lottery processes and what to expect after the lottery itself. If you have any questions during the session, you are encouraged to type them into the chat through Zoom. I'm also going to be asking throughout the presentation if anyone has any questions at certain times, so you can go ahead and unmute yourself during that time. When you came into the meeting tonight, you were muted. So we just ask that if you do ask a question, you then go ahead and mute yourself again just to minimize the noise. My colleague Dave is going to be helping out with answering questions that come in through the chat. So you're going to see his name on the responses. And we also have Darian Cooper, the on-site manager for 346 Union on the call tonight. So if there's any questions that come up related to the property that SCB Housing isn't able to answer, he'll be able to help us out. So this is a live session. You heard the disclaimer when you came into the room that the meeting is being recorded. It's going to be posted after tonight on SCB Housing's YouTube channel. So it'll be available there after tonight if anyone was not able to attend and wants to watch. Any questions so far? Any trouble viewing the screen or hearing me or anything like that? All right. So just some background information on who we are. SCB Housing, we are an off-site affordable housing consulting group. We're not the on-site management team for the building. We've been hired by the developer to market the affordable units, conduct this information session, collect and review applications in order to determine applicants' eligibility, and then to eventually run the lottery. So in the initial phases, we are your main point of contact rather than the leasing office. But then further along in the process, the on-site management team, which is corporate management at 346 Union, will take over as your main point of contact for these affordable units. There's a few steps in the process. The first is to apply for the lottery and be found to qualify for the affordable housing program based on that application. We'll be in touch, you'll be in touch with SCB Housing, and we can answer any questions you have during that application process. We'll review your application, and we'll enter you into the lottery if you are eligible to be included. The second step in the process is if you're, after the lottery, if your position on the waiting list is high enough, you'll be invited to complete a program certification with SCB Housing. That's the point in the process where you're going to be submitting a lot more documentation to us, including your income, asset, and tax documentation. You don't need to submit any of that to be entered into the lottery. So to apply for the lottery, you just need to self-report your income and all of that. The third step in the process, if you are approved for the affordable housing program, you're then going to be put in touch with the leasing office, and you will then go through their lease eligibility process, which is separate from the screenings at SCB Housing, and it might include, credit checks, reference checks, background checks, that sort of thing. If you are lease approved, then that's when you'll be able to select and reserve and eventually lease an apartment at 346 Union. So If you haven't already, you're going to want to go onto our website. If you click on affordable housing opportunities and then you select I want to rent and then select Union 346, you're going to come to a page specific to this property. It has a downloadable version of the application as well as the information packet. A lot of the information that I'm going to be reviewing during this session is in that information packet. There's also a jot form link. So an online link that's actually on your screen right now if you have, if you're looking at this on your computer or through your phone, that has the jot form link. So that's a link to the direct link to the online application. We do encourage you to apply online if that works for you. It's going to be the quickest way to apply. It will ensure that we get your application right away. And then once you submit that online application, you'll receive a confirmation email letting you know that it was received. Once you have submitted, or I should say, if the online application does not work for you for any reason, you can download the lottery application that is on our website, or you can request a paper copy from us. There, on the website listing, the application and information packet are available in several different languages. It's posted in English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, Chinese, and Nepali. If you're completing that paper application, you can submit it to us in one of several ways. You could email it to us at info@sebhousing.com. You could send it to us by regular mail. Our office is at 257 Hillside Ave in Needham. Or if you're in the Needham area and you want to drop it off at our drop box, it's a secure drop box on the left side of our building, you can do that as well. Whichever one of those works best for you, but we do encourage you to fill out that online application if it is possible for you. And we encourage you to get your application in early. It's fairly brief. It should only take you about 10 minutes to complete, and you don't need to submit any supporting income, asset, or tax documentation at this early stage in the process. Like I said, though, it'll just be required later on, that supporting documentation. The applications are due by May 4th. They have to be submitted or sent to us by that date to be considered for the lottery. You do not need to be a resident of Somerville to apply for the lottery. However, all of the affordable units will have local preference for residents of Somerville or applicants who work full-time within the city. Also, households with a documented need for a unit with accessible features or hearing impaired features will get top priority for those units. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes as well. Just a reminder, again, any questions, you can send them into the chat as we go along, or let me know if you have a question by unmuting yourself. So Union 346 does have a website. If you want to go on their website, it's on the link is on your page now, on your screen now. It's union346.com. I've put in the /affordable housing here because they do have an affordable housing section on their website. There's additional floor plans on that website. There's photos that you may not have seen of the property, and there's a more comprehensive list of amenities. So check that out if you haven't already. If you're interested in a tour of the property, there are 2 open houses scheduled. The first is going to be held on Wednesday, April 26th from 2 to 6 p.m. The second open house will be on Saturday, April 29th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So you'll have the opportunity during those hours to go and check out the property. Qualifying for an affordable unit, this process takes a little bit of time. So it's expected that the first leases will be available for July 1st move-in. So keep that in mind as you are moving through the process. 346 Union is a new rental apartment community located at 346 Somerville Ave in Somerville. The building's 6 stories plus a basement level, and it's serviced by an elevator. It's in the Union Square area of Somerville, which has a lot of shops and restaurants in the area. It is less than a half mile from the new MBTA Green Line extension station. The building itself is smoke-free and pet-friendly. The community amenities include a fitness center, a roof deck, bike storage and repair station, and an on-site park. The units themselves feature stainless steel appliances, in-unit laundry, and central heating and cooling. The affordable apartments are located throughout the building. So there's affordable units from the basement level up to the 6th floor. So they're dispersed around the property. They are not recognizable as affordable in any way to anyone who would be passing by. Tenants are responsible for all utilities, which include electric, heat, hot water, cooking, electricity, and water and sewer charges. There is no parking available at this building. So if you drive, if you have a car, you would need to make arrangements for street parking because there are no options at this building if you're a tenant. There are 18 affordable apartments that are being made available through this process, and they're going to be rented to households who qualify across a broad range of income parameters. And we're going to talk about those in just a second too. The units are going to be, throughout 3 income tiers. So there are area median incomes for the Boston area. These are amounts that are released each year by the Housing and Urban Development, so HUD. And the units fall as 50% AMI units. Area median income is AMI. There's 50% units, there's 80% units, and there's 110% units. It's all depending on your household income. For households who don't have mobile subsidies, so vouchers, if you have Section 8 or MRVP, if you don't have a voucher, you can have an income as low as about $29,500 per year and qualify for these apartments. You can qualify for the 50% units. Or to qualify, you can have incomes as high as $123,000 and still qualify for the 110% unit. So it's a pretty large range of household or income limits that could be, or household incomes, I should say, that could potentially qualify for one of these income tiers. The minimum amounts and the maximum amounts are on your screen right now. We're going to talk more about these in just a few minutes, but I'll put them up there as I'm talking about this. The minimum income amounts and the maximum income limits for this opportunity vary depending on how many people are in the household. So when you're applying, when you're submitting your lottery application, you don't need to indicate for us, it's not going to ask you to indicate for us, which units you're applying for. You're just going to choose, I'm interested in a studio unit, a 1-bedroom unit, or both. We will then take a look at the income that you have reported for your household, and we'll make sure that we place you on the waiting list for the appropriate units based on your household income. You can only qualify for 1 income tier, so you can't be on all the wait lists for all the units because your total household income is only going to qualify you for one tier, either 50% AMI, 80% AMI, or 110% AMI. So we encourage you to apply, list the best estimate that you have for your household income on your application. And when your application is processed by us, within about 1 to 2 weeks, you'll hear back from us with a notice confirming which units you qualify for based on that, what you reported in your lottery application. And I'll come back to that slide in just a minute. So there are 7 apartments that are going to be rented to households whose annual household income does not exceed 50% of AMI. There are 5 studios, and there are the remaining 2 units that are 50% AMI or 1-bedroom units. One of those apartments, one of each the unit sizes, I should say, 1 studio that's 50% and 1 1-bedroom that's 50% are built out for persons with mobility impairment. So they're considered to be disabled accessible. The rents for the 50% AMI units are $1,075 for a studio and $1,095 for a 1-bedroom. There are also 7 80% AMI units, and those are going to be rented to households that have a household income between 50% and 80% of the area median income. There are 6 studio 80% units and 1 one-bedroom 80% unit. One of the studio 80% apartments has been built out for persons with hearing impairment. So anyone who requires the features of that unit would have priority. The rents for the 80% units for the studio, it's $1,418, $1,418 for the rent. And for the one bedroom, it's $1,464. And then finally, there are 4 apartments that will be rented to households whose annual income doesn't exceed 110% of the area median income. And all 4 of those 110% units are studios. And the rents for those are calculated a little bit differently. They are based on household income, which is not the case for the 50% and 80% AMI units. So the rents for these 110%, you can see on your screen here, if you're looking at it, that there's a huge range there of what you might be paying if you're living in a 110% unit. They could be as low as $1,806 or go as high as $2,932. It depends on the applicant's income. So I'll talk more about that in a second. So the 50 and 80% AMI affordable rents are not set in accordance with the applicant's income or financial circumstances. If you're renting one of the 50% or 80% AMI units, if your income changes, the rent isn't going to change. For the housing program, the rents are set using a formula based on HUD's area median income for the Somerville, Boston area. The rent might increase once per year, typically around when HUD revises their area median incomes each spring. There would always be advance notice if there was a rent increase. Usually it's pretty modest, no more than $25 to $75, and your rent would never change in the middle of your lease term. For the 110% AMI units, as I mentioned, the rents are set based on the household income at the time of program certification, which means when SEB Housing confirms that you're eligible for the program, the affordable housing program. The rents for those 110% units will not exceed 30% of your gross monthly household income. So we'd be doing a calculation on our end to confirm what your rent will be before you sign a lease. So you obviously will know that information before committing to anything. All right, so I've covered a lot of logistics, given a basic overview of the units at 346 Union. Just a reminder again, if you have any questions, I've got the chat that you can go ahead and type them into, or you can unmute yourself and let us know. All right, so I'm going to get on to the eligibility requirements for the affordable housing program. So if you are looking at, or if you plan to look at the information packet for this property, you can go to page 5 and see the 5 eligibility requirements. So I'm going to list those off, and I'm going to come back to explain a lot more about the income qualifications for the program. So the first eligibility requirement is that households to qualify for this lottery and to qualify for the affordable housing program must have qualifying income and assets. So I'm going to talk more about the income parameters in just a few minutes, but for this lottery, applicants must have a household income at or below 110% of the area median income in order to qualify for one of those income tiers, the 50, 80, or 110% units. The second eligibility requirement is that households cannot have more than $75,000 in total assets. And this asset limit does not include any savings that you have in retirement, college, or health savings accounts. Those amounts would not count toward your asset limit. The third eligibility requirement is that households cannot own a home upon move-in. So if you own a home now, you may still be eligible for the lottery. You would just need to sell the property prior to renting or signing a lease for an affordable unit at 346 Union. The fourth item to keep in mind for eligibility purposes is that, and this is a little bit unique to this lottery. If you've been familiar with some of our other ones before, this is unique to Somerville. Unrelated and unmarried household members that are applying together. So if you're planning on applying with someone who you haven't lived with in the past, you may not be eligible for the lottery. So you would need to provide verification that you're currently living together following the lottery. So for example, if you are an engaged couple, but you don't live together right now, or if you're just two people without a rental history together and you're looking to be roommates at this property, you may not be eligible for this lottery. Because after the lottery, you would need to submit verification that you've been living together in the past if you're an unmarried household. And page 7 of the information packet lists more details on this as well. And then finally, all head of households cannot be full-time students. So if you are a full-time student, but there is another head of household or a co-head of household who is not a full-time student, you would be eligible for this lottery. But if you are the only head of household and you're a full-time student, you wouldn't be eligible for this lottery. All right. So to circle back on the first eligibility criteria, again, this is the slide that I just had up a few minutes ago. It shows the income parameters for this program, the minimum and maximum annual incomes. So since these are affordable units, they're only going to be made available to households that fall within these income parameters. They're being made available, the apartments are being made available to rent at prices that are lower than identical units within the building. So there are income parameters in order to qualify for these units. The parameters are set by the city and for the affordable housing program. The 50% AMI income floor, or the lowest income that a household needs to qualify for the affordable apartments, is based on a city requirement. You'll see that on your screen right now. For the 50% units, it's $29,448. So if your household makes less than that, you wouldn't qualify for these units unless you have a housing subsidy. And these are set by the city because the understanding is that a household should make at least 2 times the gross rent to be able to afford the apartment, the rent of the apartment. The 80% income range that you see on your screen shows the figures for household incomes between 50 and 80% AMI. Those are people who would be qualifying for the 80% unit. And then the 110% income range shows a household income between 80% and 110% of AMI. Anyone whose income is above that 110% AMI figures that you see would be over income for this lottery. Excuse me. So again, if you're looking on page 3 of the information packet on your, or if you're looking at your screen right now, you'll notice that, for example, if you're a 2-person household and your total household income is $40,000, you would qualify for a 50% AMI studio or 1-bedroom. If you're a 1-person household and your household income is $70,000, for example, you might qualify for a studio or 1-bedroom 80%, and so on. So if you take a look at that, and it's kind of just a simplified slide for you to look at, and in the information packet, there's a chart to give you the same sort of information there. You'll also notice, looking at the income parameters, that, unfortunately, if you're below that $29,448, you may not be eligible for this lottery. The only exception to that is the minimum income amounts are not applicable to applicants who have mobile vouchers such as Section 8 that they plan to use at the property. If you do have a mobile voucher, just go ahead and disregard these minimum incomes because they won't apply to you. However, if you do have a voucher, we would still suggest that you check in with the agency that issues your voucher to confirm that the rents are within the agency's payment standards or maximum rents for your voucher program. The leasing office would eventually confirm with your housing authority that the rents are permissible, but obviously it would be best for you to know sooner rather than later whether or not they'll work. So just a reminder, I mean, verification of income is not required at the time of your lottery application, but when you are issued a eligibility letter with your lottery application number, you are going to be given a link to a documentation requirements guide. And what that is it's a document that's going to detail exactly what type of documentation we're going to need from you in order to, if you are at the top of the waiting list following the lottery, it's going to let you know how many pay stubs we're going to need from you, what types of bank statements you should send us, and that sort of thing. All households at that time will also be required to submit your tax return. So if you're at the top of one of the waiting lists and you're called to move forward, those are the types of things that you need to gather. But that documentation requirements guide is just something that we put together for you to be able to have it as a resource when you're gathering the documentation. So although we're not going to verify your income right away or before the lottery, I still want to give a basic overview on how we will be counting your income. So income for the program is counted as a projection of your household income over the next 12 months for all household members. All income of household members is included. This includes, things that may not be as steady, like bonuses and overtime. And the only exceptions to this is if you have a minor, so anybody under the age of 18 in the household who is earning a wage, we're not going to count their wage income. Also, if you have dependent full-time students who are working, only $480 of their wages will be counted when determining eligibility. We are required to count gross income, not your net income, so the amount you make before taxes, although we recognize you don't take home the full amount of your salary. According to the program, that is what we need to use when determining household eligibility. So how we calculate income is not one size fits all. Everyone's income circumstances are unique. So while some applicants are going to have a weekly salary and it's consistent throughout the year, not everyone is in that same circumstance. So there could be people working seasonally or who are self-employed. In those circumstances, we might need to look further back into your past income in order to project your anticipated income for the next 12 months. And then specifically for applicants who are self-employed, you're going to need to complete a profit and loss statement and provide supporting documentation. So if you're self-employed, your business expenses are taken into account. But if you're not self-employed, it will always be the gross income that we count. In general, any income that you have been making, we're going to assume you're going to continue to make that income going forward unless we have some sort of definitive documentation, maybe from your employer saying that you're no longer working there, or that bonuses or overtime won't be applicable in the coming year, that sort of thing. We might request that from you if that's being reported, that you've switched jobs or something like that. On your application, there's a chart, or if you're on the online application, there are different fields for the different types of income or the most common types of income that are reported. So it's not just wages you would need to report, but if you have any Social Security benefits that are coming into the household, child support payments, retirement distributions, unemployment or workman's comp, a pension, that sort of thing. Just make sure that you're reporting all of that on your application. And then for assets, just a reminder again, there is an asset limit for this lottery. If the asset limit is $75,000, when we're totaling your household assets, we're going to be excluding any amounts that you report that are tied up in retirement, college, or health savings accounts, but you are still going to need to report those accounts on your application and then eventually provide statements after the lottery if you are invited to move forward. If income is generated by your assets, that income is going to be counted towards your total household income. And then in addition, although we are not going to be counting the balance of retirement accounts towards your asset limit, the program requires that we count 70% of the full income and then impute that income from the retirement account by 0.06% in order to use that amount towards income. So if you have a retirement account, there's an example of how this might work for your household on page 7 of the information packet. When we're thinking about assets too, it's not just checking and savings accounts. You want to be making sure that you're reporting, amounts you have in CDs, Venmo, PayPal accounts, stocks, bonds, that sort of thing. We do not need you to report or verify personal assets like cars and things like that. All right, again, just a reminder, any questions, let us know. Either in the chat or by unmuting. All right, so the lottery itself, if you're interested in applying, again, we just want to make sure you get that application in as soon as possible to get the process started. And we want to mention that, again, that you can apply for more than one unit size. So if you think you might be interested in both a studio and a 1-bedroom, you should indicate that on your application. There's really no downside to applying for both unit types or sizes, but there's a potential downside if you only apply, for example, to a studio, and then you're, further down the list. And if you would apply to both, perhaps you'd be higher up on the 1-bedroom list, and you'd still be interested in that. So just remember that if you are interested in renting either unit, to indicate that on your application. So once you get the lottery application in, either by submitting the online application or sending it to us as a paper application, we will contact you if any information is missing or appears to be incorrect. And if you're on the online application, it's going to send, or it's going to show you on the screen, a disclaimer in red if you fill out anything incorrectly or your application was not submitted. So you should know right away if something's wrong. And then again, soon after submitting your online application, you're going to receive an automatic confirmation email that it was received. So another upside of submitting it online. If you are found eligible for the lottery, you're going to be sent an email with your lottery application number in the form of a series of numbers. This number is really just an anonymous identifier, and it's going to be the number that's drawn in the lottery. Excuse me, you can hear my voice cracking. Your name will not be called during the lottery. It's going to be that number that's called. And the number is not a ranking of any sort at this point. If you were the first person to submit a complete application for this property, your number would be A.001. In that email that you receive confirming your lottery application number, it's also going to confirm if your household reported local preference. And that would be if you are a resident of Somerville, or you are, or if a household member works full-time in Somerville. If you've indicated that on your application, you're going to be required to provide supporting documentation after the lottery, but you don't need to submit it with your application. You just want to be sure that you're completing that section accurately, though, because it will impact your placement on the waiting list. And so if you report that you're a Somerville resident on your lottery application, but then you're unable to verify that when we ask you to do that after the lottery, you're going to forfeit your position on the waiting list. So just make sure that you're filling it out accurately, and you're paying attention to what you're choosing there. All of the units I already mentioned this too, but all of the units at 346 Union are going to have local preference. So what that means is that local preference households are going to have priority for all units, all affordable units. So all local preference households, all local preference households will be ahead of non-local preference households on the waiting list that we compile after the lottery. The email that I'm mentioning that confirms your placement, or not your placement, but your lottery application number is also going to confirm what bedroom sizes, so a studio or one bedroom that you have applied for. And it'll also confirm whether or not you indicated that you need a disabled accessible or a hearing impairment unit. And then again, applicants who need special features of either of those units are going to have priority over households who don't require the features of the unit. And then this is the email that we're also going to provide the link to the documentation requirements guide. So this is an email that'll come to you once you have been determined to be eligible for the lottery. If at any point in the process you're found to be ineligible for the lottery, so maybe you're over income, you're under income, you're going to be informed by email, and you're encouraged to contact us with any questions. If you think that the reason that you received a documentation from us maybe is incorrect, maybe something was filled out incorrectly, just make sure you let us know before that application deadline so we can let you know how to move forward and potentially be found eligible for the lottery. The lottery itself is going to be held on May 31st at 6 p.m. It's going to be held via Zoom, just like this information session. And attending the lottery is not required, and all applicants will be sent the lottery results, hopefully no later than the following day. During the lottery, every lottery number is going to be drawn, not just the top households for each waiting list. So in general, it is more beneficial for your number to be called early on in the process, but it is not going to be the deciding factor on whether or not you'll be moving forward to lease one of the units. Because after the lottery, we still need to sort the results by priority. So by that local preference priority. So for example, if the first 10 application numbers that are drawn belong to households who don't qualify for local preference, those first 10 people are still going to be placed on the waiting list behind the local preference households who have priority in the lottery. The purpose of the lottery is to establish the order of the waiting list. And then also households who enter the lottery might be found ineligible by the leasing office, or may decide not to rent the unit. So if you're called further down in the lottery, you shouldn't automatically think you're not going to be able to move forward, because you may still have the opportunity to do so. We need to sort those results. All right, after the lottery, like I said, SCB Housing will populate the waiting list. We're going to take those priorities into consideration. We'll do our best to send the waiting list to all lottery applicants within a day or so. When you're reviewing that email that comes to you after the lottery, you're going to find your lottery application number, and you'll see where you fall on the waiting list or on both waiting lists if you applied for both. At that point, you're going to have a better idea of whether or not you may be invited to move forward in the process. And the next step in the process would be to complete your program certification with SCB Housing, which is when you submit your income, asset, tax documentation. So if you're near the top of the waiting list, great, but please don't take that to mean that you should immediately give notice to your current property owner if you're renting, because you haven't yet been approved to rent at 346 Union. There's still a couple steps in the process before you should be giving notice. So following the lottery and then compiling the waiting list, SCB Housing is going to reach out to as many households on each waiting list as there are available units. So at 346 Union, there are 5 50% AMI studio units. So we're going to invite the first five households on that waiting list, and so forth for all the units or the unit sizes. Those 5 households will be asked to submit all required documentation to SCB Housing within 5 days. If not all documentation is submitted within those 5 days, SCB will send up to 3 incomplete notices to households to give them the opportunity to complete their application. If the household isn't able to complete the application after the 3 extension notices, they'll be issued a notice of ineligibility, and their position on the waiting list will be forfeited. So if you're getting an incomplete notice from our office, you're going to want to reply to it, ask us any questions. If you're not sure what's needed, if it's confusing to you, please let us know. We want to try to help you through the process because we know it's a lot of documentation that you need to get in. We also want to mention that during this process, SEB Housing might also contact households who aren't yet at the top of the waiting list in order to request documents related to preference or priority, such as proof of residency for Somerville residents. And this is just to speed up the lease-up process. So we'll let you know if you're at the top of the list or if we're just asking for local preference documentation preemptively. And then obviously, if you have any questions on a denial that you receive or anything like that, there are resources for your appeal that are listed in the information packet. And of course, let us know of any questions. If you are found eligible by SEB Housing after we've reviewed all of your income, asset, and tax documentation, you're going to be issued what's called a proceed letter. And you'll have 5 days to then reach out to the leasing office at 346 Union so that you can begin the third and final step in the process, which is applying for the lease and doing their lease screening. And the lease screening process is going to be similar to those, to the same screening process that market rate tenants are going through. They could include credit background and rental reference checks. This is the point of the process that having a position near the top of the waiting list is particularly beneficial. If you're the top household on the waiting list, you're going to have the top you're going to have the first selection for the available units. This is true even if someone further down the waiting list happens to complete their lease screening with the leasing office before you do. The leasing office is always going to maintain the order of the waiting list. When you're going through this process, you're going to be able to tour the units. If you haven't already gone to the open house and you're touring a specific unit again, you can then make your decision based on whatever factors are important to you. It might be you wanted a certain location in the building or you wanted a certain lease date. You'd be able to work that out with the leasing office. And then the second household on the waiting list will have the second choice of the remaining unit and so on. Same thing with when the leasing office is corresponding with you. You want to make sure that you are replying to their invitations and deadlines and things. You don't want to be dropped from the waiting list for not responding or for not updating your email address with us. So make sure that we have your updated contact info. All right. So once you're leased, you are done with screenings until the lease renewal date. And at that point, we hope you've enjoyed your time living at 346 Union. And if you want to continue living there beyond the first year of the lease, which we hope you do, you need to recertify your income with the leasing office prior to your lease renewal. If upon lease renewal, your income is increased and is now above that original 50, 80, or 110% of area median income that you qualified under, that's fine. Households would remain eligible for the affordable housing apartment as long as the household income doesn't exceed 140% of that year's 50 or 80% area median income. Or it's a little bit different for that 110% AMI unit. If you're living in a 110% unit and you're recertifying at your lease renewal date, you'll remain eligible for the unit as long as your household income doesn't exceed 120% of that year's area median income. And if you start out in a 50% unit and now you qualify for an 80% unit, that can be worked out with the leasing office that your unit turns into an 80% unit and they backfill a 50% unit. And so forth. So pages 16 and 17 of the information packet list the figures for 120% to 140% for the different household sizes. If you are anticipating an increase in your income in the next year or so, and you're curious about those figures, you can take a look there. That about covers what I wanted to get through from the information packet. Again, you can find the lottery application listed in several different languages on our website. And you can also, I'm going to go back to the slide that has the online application link here. So the jotform.com, SEB Housing Union 346, that is the online application. So you'd be able to apply through there. Are there any questions about what was reviewed or what you've seen either on our website or on the website for the actual property? Like I mentioned, we have Darian on the line who could help us out with any specific questions related to the units or the property, if you have any. Sure, so I have a question here. There's a direct message that came in. So can you go over again the household composition, unmarried? So since there's only studio and 1-bedroom units for this lottery, it's expected that there'll be at least one person, obviously, in the unit. So there's not really household types for this lottery. So there's studio. If you're thinking about the waiting list themselves, the only priorities that apply are full-time workers in Somerville or residents in Somerville. So there's really no other priority. So on the waiting list, if you are a single person, you can apply for either of the units. We will place you in whatever income tier makes the most sense for your household, or whichever income tier you qualify for, I should say. And you just on your application want to list everyone that's in your household. If it's only you, you would just put your name and you would qualify based on that household composition, because it's just one person for all of these units. And we would just go ahead and place you on the waiting list that you qualified for based on your income. Any other questions? All right, we encourage you to go ahead onto the online application. If not, you can go onto our website and download the application from there and submit it to us. The deadline is May 4th. And there's going to be another information session, which I'm sure you won't need to come to after tonight, but if you had any additional questions and you wanted to check in with us again, you could email us at union346@sebhousing.com. And the open house is coming up in a couple weeks as well. Thank you all for joining. Have a good night.